What if everything you have been seeking, every answer, every solution, every fragment of peace, was already present within you, waiting not to be found, but to be recognized? We spend our lives in a frantic search, looking to the outer world for fulfillment, for healing, for a salvation that always seems to be just out of reach. We pray to a distant God. We beg for entry into a kingdom we believe exists in some far-off time or place. But this is the great illusion, the very veil that keeps us from seeing the staggering truth. The kingdom of heaven is not a location you travel to. It is not a reward for good behavior. It is not a future event. It is the very substance of your own being, the living, breathing reality of God in action here and now. When you truly understand this, the entire universe shifts. The problems that seemed monumental begin to lose their substance. The fears that gripped you are revealed as shadows, having no power against the light of this one eternal fact. Your work is not to build this kingdom, but to consent to it. It is to become quiet, to turn within, and to surrender the arrogant notion that you must orchestrate your own life. In that sacred silence, a presence makes itself known. It is a current of life, a river of peace, an infinite intelligence that knows the way. Your only task is to listen, to yield, to let this divine presence live your life as you. This is the end of seeking. This is the beginning of living. If these words have resonated with a truth you feel deep within your soul, then I invite you to perform a sacred act. Let your subscription to this channel be a vow, a commitment to your own inward journey. Let it be your silent agreement to go deeper. And below, in the comments, I invite you to place the number 7. Do not merely type it. Let it be a prayer, a symbol of your acknowledgement of the inner perfection and completeness that is your true nature. Let it be your silent testament that you are ready to move from the outer world of effect to the inner kingdom of cause. Imagine, then, the sheer weight that lifts when this single truth shatters the old paradigm. The kingdom is not a distant destination. For most of our lives, we operate under a profound and exhausting misconception. We are like a fish swimming endlessly through the ocean, desperately thirsty, begging for a single drop of water, completely unaware that it is already completely submerged in the very substance it seeks. We look to the outer world to provide what only the inner world can reveal. We believe that a change in circumstances, a new job, a healed body, a reconciled relationship, a more secure bank account will finally be the key that unlocks the gate to this elusive state of peace we call heaven. We pray to a God we perceive as separate from us, a divine CEO in the sky whose favor we must earn through ritual, right belief, or sufficient suffering. We are, in essence, beggars pleading outside a palace, unaware that we are the rightful heirs living inside, blinded to the truth by a veil of our own making. This external seeking is the root of all human anxiety. It fuels the relentless chase, the constant state of becoming. You wake up each morning and your mind immediately begins its inventory of lack. It scans the horizon for threats and measures the distance between where you are and where you think you need to be happy. The presentation at work is not just a presentation. It is the potential gateway to validation and security. The conflict with a loved one is not just a momentary disagreement. It feels like a fracture in the very foundation of your peace. The pain in your body is not just a physical sensation. It is a terrifying reminder of your vulnerability and mortality. In this state, every event, every person, every headline holds the power to either elevate you or devastate you, because you have given them all the keys to your inner kingdom. You have made your state of consciousness dependent on the ever-shifting, unpredictable winds of the external world. This is the great illusion that the kingdom of heaven is contingent upon effect. We wait for the world to align perfectly before we allow ourselves to feel the peace of God. We think, when my finances are in order, then I will feel secure. When this person apologizes, then I will be able to forgive and find peace. When my health is restored, then I will feel whole and grateful. We are forever putting the cart before the horse, waiting for the outer world to manifest perfection so that our inner world can finally relax into it. But this is backwards. It is a cosmic misunderstanding of the highest order. The outer world is merely a shadow, a projection, an echo of the inner. To seek the kingdom in the shadow is to chase a mirage. The oasis is not on the horizon. It is the very ground upon which you stand. Consider a practical moment from your own life. You are stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. The familiar tension begins to coil in your stomach. Your hands grip the steering wheel. Your mind races with scenarios of blame, consequence, and frustration. In that moment, you are seeking a solution from the outer world. You are begging for the cars to move. Your peace is held hostage by traffic patterns. Now, imagine a different response, one born from the understanding of the inner kingdom. The traffic is still there. The lateness is still a factual circumstance. But instead of projecting your consciousness entirely into the problem, you remember the truth. You take a breath, not as a stress relief technique, but as a conscious turning within. You withdraw your frantic energy from the outer effect, and you settle into the inner cause. You acknowledge a presence within you that is undisturbed by traffic, unfazed by schedules, a deep, still pool of silence that was always there beneath the storm of your thoughts. In that moment of turning, you are not changing the traffic. You are changing the center of your identity. You are moving from being the victim of the circumstance to being the witness of it, anchored in a peace that circumstances cannot touch. This is not denial. It is the profoundest form of engagement with reality. The meeting may still have consequences, but you will meet them from a place of power and clarity, not from a place of reactive panic. This is the kingdom in action. It is the recognition that the peace you were seeking from the moving cars was never in the cars to begin with. It was always within your own capacity to turn inward and consent to the presence that is already there, whole and unassailable. This understanding begins to rewire your entire existence. The search for external validation slowly loses its grip. You no longer need the promotion to prove your worth, because your worth is sensed as an inherent fact of your being, a divine endowment. You no longer need a specific person to love you in a specific way to feel complete, because you have touched the source of love itself within your own soul. The frantic energy of life begins to settle. A deep, abiding trust emerges, not a trust that the outer world will always be pleasant, but a trust that the core of your being is an indestructible citadel of peace, regardless of the weather outside its walls. The problems of life do not necessarily disappear, but they are robbed of their power to define you, to shatter you. They become events you move through, not prisons you live within. This recognition, this dawning awareness that the kingdom is not a far-off destination, naturally leads to the most profound and personal discovery imaginable. If the peace, the wholeness, the absolute security we call heaven is not out there, then there is only one place it can possibly reside. It must be the very core of what you are. The kingdom of heaven is not a place you visit. It is the nature of your true being. You are not a physical body that occasionally has a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a temporary physical experience. The divine substance, the infinite intelligence, the unconditional love that we have given the name God, this is not a force that interacts with you from a distance. It is the very ground of your consciousness, the silent awareness behind your every thought, the life force animating your every breath. To grasp this is to initiate a complete revolution in identity. Most of us walk through our days believing we are this collection of thoughts, memories, desires, and fears housed in a bag of skin and bones. We believe the incessant voice in our head is who we are. But that voice, that stream of mental commentary, is merely a surface phenomenon, a flickering on the screen. Your true being is the screen itself, unchanging, undisturbed, and ever present, upon which the movie of your personal life plays out. The anger you feel, the joy you experience, the anxiety that grips you, these are all passing weather patterns in the sky of your awareness. But you are the sky, vast and silent, capable of holding every storm without being damaged by it. You are not the content of your life. You are the context for it. This shift from identifying with the content to abiding as the context changes everything. Consider a moment of intense fear. Perhaps you are about to speak in front of a large audience. The body trembles, the mind races with thoughts of failure and judgment. In that moment, if you believe you are those thoughts and sensations, you are completely enslaved by them. You are the fear. But if you can, even for a second, remember the truth of your nature, you can take a step back internally. You can observe the trembling. You can listen to the frantic thoughts. You can feel the pounding heart. The key is, you are the one observing it all. The real you, the aware presence, is the space in which this temporary storm of fear is happening. The fear does not define you. It is merely a temporary experience you are having. By not identifying with it, you rob it of its power. It may still be present, but it no longer has you. This is not a philosophical abstraction. It is the most practical tool for daily living. When a wave of grief washes over you after a loss, the pain can feel absolute, as if it will define the rest of your existence. But if you can find that still point within, that part of you that is simply aware of the grief, you realize a profound truth. The part of you that is aware of the sadness is not itself sad. The awareness is pristine, untouched by the emotions it witnesses. This does not negate the human experience of grief, but it places a foundation beneath it. A foundation of an indestructible self that cannot be annihilated by any passing emotion, no matter how powerful. You can honor the human feeling without becoming lost in it, because you know it is not the ultimate truth of what you are. The same applies to your sense of lack. You may look at your bank account and feel a knot of anxiety, believing the thought that says, "I am not enough." But if you inquire deeply, who is the I that is not enough? Is it the aware presence that you are, or is it a thought that has arisen within that presence? The thought, "I am not enough," is just another cloud in your sky. The sky itself is always and completely enough simply by being what it is. Your true being lacks nothing because it is the source of everything. It does not need to acquire love. It is love. It does not need to find peace. It is peace. It does not need to become wise. It is the very channel through which infinite intelligence flows. Your entire life then ceases to be a project of building a self worthy of the kingdom and becomes a process of unveiling the kingdom that is already the core of yourself. Every challenge, every joy, every mundane moment becomes an opportunity to remember this, to peel back another layer of the illusion and stand once again as the radiant being you have always been. When you begin to abide in this knowing, to truly feel the truth of your being as the unchanging awareness behind the changing scene, a remarkable and liberating event begins to take place. The very structure of what you have always called a problem starts to collapse. It loses its substance, its weight, its terrifying solidity. You start to see that a problem, in the way we typically understand it, cannot exist in the kingdom, because a problem is entirely a construct of the mind that believes it is separate from God. A problem is born from the perception of lack, the belief in a power opposed to good, and the frantic identity that feels it must personally solve everything. But from the vantage point of your true being, these perceptions are seen for the illusions they are. Consider the nature of a problem. It always involves a past event you regret or a future outcome you fear. It is never happening in the eternal now, which is the only place where the kingdom can be realized. You are never actually in a problem. You are only ever in the present moment. The problem is a story the mind is telling about the present moment, a narrative of threat or insufficiency. The bill on the table is just a piece of paper. The strained relationship is just a collection of thoughts and feelings occurring now. The diagnosis is just information received in this moment. The problem is the catastrophic movie your mind projects onto the screen of the future, a future that never actually arrives. When your identity shifts from the frantic mind to the silent awareness, you are no longer hypnotized by the movie. You see the projector for what it is. This is the collapse of the problem, mind. It does not mean that practical circumstances do not require practical responses. It means your entire orientation toward them is transformed. You are no longer a lonely individual facing down a hostile universe. You are the very consciousness through which the universe is appearing, and that consciousness is one with infinite intelligence. The question shifts from, how am I going to solve this, to what activity of God is unfolding here, and how can I align with it? This is a surrender of personal will, not a resignation to fate. It is the most active state imaginable, because it is an activity of yielding to a wisdom far greater than your own. Let this truth illuminate a common situation. You have a serious financial obligation due, and the funds are not in your bank account. The problem, mind, the old identity, would immediately launch into a frenzy. It would spin tales of ruin, homelessness, and shame. It would frantically search memory for solutions, berate you for past mistakes, and project a future of utter despair. Your entire body would become tense with the effort of carrying this burden. The weight feels absolutely real. Now, from the perspective of your true being, you acknowledge the circumstance without becoming the circumstance. You see the thoughts of lack and fear as clouds passing through the sky of your awareness. You do not fight them. You simply do not grant them the authority to define reality. In that stillness, a different kind of intelligence can make itself known. Perhaps an unexpected idea for a side project arises. Perhaps a memory of a resource you had forgotten surfaces. Perhaps a friend calls with a timely opportunity. Or perhaps the only thing that happens is that a profound peace settles over you, and you realize that your worth and safety were never contained in a bank balance to begin with. The circumstance may or may not change immediately, but your experience of it is utterly transformed. You are no longer a victim of a financial problem. You are a witness to a financial situation anchored in a peace that provides the clarity to take sane, inspired, and non-frantic action. The problem has collapsed because its power to terrorize your soul has been dissolved in the light of a higher understanding. This is how you walk through the world without being of it. The argument with a spouse, instead of being a battle of two separate wills, becomes a shared cloud of confusion that you can observe with compassion from the quiet center of your being. The traffic jam becomes a forced opportunity for silence, not a trigger for rage. The pain in the body becomes a sensation to be witnessed, not an absolute verdict on your future. In every case, the problem is revealed as a call to remember who you are. It is an invitation to stop looking for solutions in the outer world of effect and to turn within to the cause, to the kingdom. where the peace that passes all understanding is already governing, already providing, and already revealing the perfect next step in the divine plan, which is your life. This collapse of the problem, mind is not a passive state of blankness. It is the precondition for the most active and profound engagement imaginable, which is the practice of inner consent. Once you stop fighting the shadows on the wall, you can finally turn to face the light. This turning is the essence of consent. It is not an act of your human will forcing a change, but a conscious, deliberate yielding of that will to the divine presence that you now know as your own being. It is the active, moment by moment practice of letting go of the steering wheel and trusting the intelligence of life itself to navigate. You are not giving up your power. You are surrendering the illusion of a separate, limited power to tap into the infinite power that you are. Think of it as learning to float in a vast ocean. Your entire life, you have been thrashing, trying to control the waves, fighting to keep your head above water through your own frantic effort. The practice of inner consent is the moment you stop thrashing. You lean back, you spread your arms, and you trust the buoyancy of the water to hold you. The ocean is the divine presence. Your yielding is the consent. The ocean was always there, ready to support you, but you could not experience its support while you were fighting against it. Your struggle was the only thing keeping you submerged. Consent is the end of the struggle. It is the ultimate. Yes. To what is this continuous practice of inner consent, this moment by moment yielding, naturally gives rise to a new way of inhabiting your life. You are no longer living for the kingdom, striving to reach it through effort and accumulation. You are now learning to live from the kingdom, allowing its infinite resources to flow out into your experience as your experience. This is the ultimate shift from being a seeker to being a vessel. Your life ceases to be a desperate journey toward a destination and becomes a radiant expression of the source that is already your home. You are not trying to get peace, you are being peace, and that state of being then colors every interaction, every thought, and every circumstance. Living from the kingdom means your center of gravity has permanently shifted inward. You are like a tree whose roots have finally tapped into a deep, subterranean aquifer. The weather on the surface, the storms of emotion, the draughts of inspiration, the winds of change may come and go, but your sustenance is no longer dependent on them. You draw your life from a source that never runs dry. Your actions in the world are no longer frantic attempts to control outcomes to feel secure. They become spontaneous, appropriate responses to the need of the moment, inspired by the intelligence of the kingdom itself. You find yourself saying the right thing without premeditation, knowing the correct step without extensive analysis, because you are being lived by a wisdom greater than your personal mind. Consider the difference in a common human endeavor, such as your work. When you live for the kingdom, your work is a means to an end. You work to achieve security, status, or the approval of others. Your energy is tied to the result, If the project succeeds, you are euphoric. If it fails, you are devastated. Your sense of self is on the line every single day. But when you live from the kingdom, your work becomes a form of worship, a channel for the divine to express itself uniquely as you. You engage with your tasks not for the outer reward, but for the inner privilege of being the vehicle through which infinite creativity flows. You do your best not to gain favor, but because it is the natural expression of the perfection inherent within you. The outcome, while still engaged with practically, is released. It no longer holds the power to validate or invalidate your existence. Your joy is in the expressing itself, not in the applause that may or may not follow. This principle transforms your relationships. The old model of relationship is one of lack and need. You look to another person to complete you, to make you feel loved and whole. This places an impossible burden on them and guarantees eventual conflict. When you live from the kingdom, you relate from a state of inherent wholeness. You no longer need someone to love you in a specific way to feel secure. You are love itself, expressing. Your interactions become offerings, not negotiations. You listen not to formulate a reply, but to behold the divine presence in the other. You give not to receive love in return, but because the love within you is so abundant, it must overflow. This is how you love without condition, not as a moral achievement, but as a simple consequence of knowing who you are. Even the most mundane activities are sanctified. Washing the dishes is no longer a chore to be finished, but an opportunity to feel the warmth of the water, to see the light glint off a clean plate, to be fully present in a simple act of bringing order. Driving your car becomes a moving meditation, a practice of being the silent, aware presence while the world moves past you. In every moment, you are not a human being trying to become spiritual. You are the spiritual being fully incarnate in a human moment. Your entire life becomes a seamless dialogue between the inner reality of the kingdom and the outer world of form. You are the point where the infinite touches the finite, not in a rare moment of spiritual ecstasy, but in the next breath you take, the next step you walk, the next word you speak. This is the fruit of the journey, not a trophy to be won, but a life to be lived naturally, spontaneously, and radiantly from the source that has always been you. When your life becomes this radiant expression, this continuous flow from the inner source to the outer world, a profound and final realization dawns. The seeking is over. The frantic, lifelong search for something more, something better, something out there that will finally complete the puzzle of your existence simply ceases. It does not end because you have found the final answer, but because you have realized you are the answer you were seeking. The very energy that once propelled you on an endless quest is now freed to be the joy of being itself. You are no longer a pilgrim on a path. You have become the destination. The journey and the arrival have merged into one seamless, eternal now. This is not a state of stagnation or complacency. It is the exact opposite. It is the beginning of true, dynamic living. All the energy once consumed by seeking, the energy spent worrying about the future, regretting the past, comparing yourself to others, and striving for a spiritual trophy, is now reclaimed. That immense reservoir of life force is no longer wasted on the projection of a better tomorrow. It is fully available to pour into the vibrant, creative, and loving engagement with this present moment. You discover that life was never about becoming, it was always about being, and in that being, an infinite creativity is unleashed. Imagine the relief. For your entire life, you have been carrying a silent, invisible burden. The burden of thinking you are not yet there, that you are not yet good enough, holy enough, or enlightened enough. It is a weight you learned to carry so long ago that you forgot it was even there. The end of seeking is the feeling of finally, irrevocably putting that burden down. It is the deep, somatic knowing that you are home. And from this home, you can truly engage with the world without being trapped by it. You can participate in life with a passion and freedom that was impossible when your happiness was dependent on the outcome. Consider how this transforms your relationship with spiritual practice itself. The person who is seeking uses meditation as a tool to achieve peace. They sit on the cushion with a goal, straining to quiet the mind, judging their progress, feeling frustrated by their lack of attainment. But when the seeking ends, meditation is no longer a means to an end. It is simply what you are. It is the natural state of abiding as the aware presence, whether you are sitting in silence, negotiating a contract, or laughing with a friend. You do not practice to get somewhere. You rest in the knowing that you are already here. The formal practice becomes a cherished deepening of this abiding, a joyful immersion in your own nature, not a frantic attempt to escape your humanity. In your daily work, the end of seeking means you are no longer working for the promotion, the bonus, or the corner office to fill a void within. You work as an act of creation and service because the life within you must express itself. The compulsion is gone, replaced by a quiet, powerful impetus to contribute your unique note to the universal symphony. An artist no longer paints for fame and recognition, but because the beauty within demands form. A teacher no longer teaches just to impart curriculum, but because the love of truth within seeks to awaken itself in others. The action is the same, but the inner context has been utterly transformed from one of lack to one of abundance. This is the final liberation from the tyranny of the future. Your happiness is no longer a promise dangled just beyond your reach. It is the very ground you walk on. A sunset is not a brief consolation before returning to the struggle. It is a breathtaking expression of the beauty that you are. A meal is not just fuel for the next achievement. It is a sacred communion with the substance of life. A conversation is not a strategic exchange to get your needs met. It is a meeting of the one divine presence, recognizing itself in another form. Life is no longer a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived, a love affair with the eternal that is happening as you, through you, and for you in this and every moment. The search for God is over because you have finally allowed God to be as you.